you doing, everybody? And welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Tuesday. We're back in the great state of Wisconsin. Weather warming up. It's getting warmer out there every single day. The snow's melting. It's a muddy mess. It is a muddy mess out there. I'm joined by Austin and Rogan today. Jumping to Austin right away. Austin, how are we doing on this fantastic Tuesday? Climbing the hill, right? We're getting there. We're climbing again. We're going back.
Yeah, we're about middle of the hill right now. We're climbing and talking about weather, man. It is warm outside. I'm walking to class and I got a bead of sweat running down my forehead, but I like it. I'm enjoying it. I'm not much fan of snow after Christmas. Christmas, you need snow. After Christmas, don't need the snow. And the snow decided to come after Christmas, so I don't know what's going on. But it got up to almost 50 today, and it's good weather. It's good weather.
Definitely good weather out there. I can't say that I've broke a sweat walking yet. I can't say that, but I think you got too many. You're bundling up too much walking outside. If you got a bead of sweat,
I'll be out there, sweatshirt, shorts, man. And I will. It comes with the big man problems, all right. It's the big man problems. We don't got to get into that, but
my favorite thing is when you hear like Texas or like Florida when it gets down to like 50 degrees. And they have it's like a statewide emergency. Like everybody needs to throw on coats. Like there's a possibility.
They cancel school.
They cancel school. And you come up here and it's like 50 degrees and you see people outside with shorts on. And you see T-shirts walking around. And those guys down there are bundled up in coats and a hat. And it's like, oh my God, I'd be sweating my balls off down there right now. Like that's where I'm at. So yeah, definitely warming up. And so Rogan, The Bachelor was on last night there. I mean, we're getting hot in there. But otherwise, on this Tuesday, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Trage. Like you said, Bachelor last night. Don't want to give any spoilers just in case no one's watched it yet. We're, 13 days away from the Swift Bowl now, next Sunday. I still don't understand this mountain thing Humpy's talking about. How are we almost halfway up the mountain? We're halfway through the mountain, but it's Monday. It's Monday night going into Tuesday morning. How is this? How is
Tuesday,
this mountain work, Humpy?
He climbs the mountain very fast.
You climb the mountain.
It's a big mountain.
You climb the mountain. Wednesday, I say this every Wednesday, okay? You guys are clearly, Rogan, you're not paying attention. Wednesday is the top of the mountain. And then you down the hill because you're going towards the weekend. You're sloping down. But Wednesday's like the pinnacle because after Wednesday, everything gets a lot easier. You're close to the weekend stuff. I don't know. But right now, climbing the mountain.
My weekend should be the top of my mountain because then my Sunday is like me going down because then I realize I have to climb up that son of a gun again.
No, because you're at the bottom of Monday because you had to climb up that hill.
Yeah, I mean, it's his own way. It's his own way of I had this argument. Everybody talks about what first base is, second base, third base, and, home run, what they talk about. I had this argument the other day with the guy, and this same argument kind of deal where it's like it's like the mountain thing where it's like a lot of steps to get there. And so anyways, before I get too far into that, moving on here, a lot to talk about today right away. And getting to the Taylor Swift thing, did you see they are adding 2 airline flights to the Super Bowl? One is called Flight 1989, and the other one, the return flight, is called Flight 87. The new album by Taylor Swift is called 1989, and Travis Kelce's number is 87. So Kansas City is adding 2 new flights from Kansas City to Las Vegas, 1989 and 87. Just stupid.
Trage, I saw a couple of TikToks, Instagrams of them after the game, and I'm not gonna lie, they are a pretty cute couple. I'm falling into the trap. I'm falling into the trap, and I'm like, honestly,
those words again, Austin.
They're pretty good for each other. You watched The Bachelor, Rogan, so I don't want to hear from you. Okay,
you guys were giving me crap yesterday for glazing Patrick Mahomes, and
That's
guy
different.
comes out here and says that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are a cute couple, and you came at me. And yeah, he watched The Bachelor. So
glazing Patrick Mahomes is one thing, but
no. After that comment, we're even across the board. Bachelor, glazing Patrick Mahomes, and you said Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were cute together. We're even again. Straight across the board, we're all even right now. So with that, I want to get into today's combo. So we got the Brewers in the newest first. We put out a post today on Facebook, kind of seeing where people were at with this Brewers organization right now after the Hoskins move and, what they thought. So what I basically said was, getting closer to the season here, do you think the Brewers are okay where they're at right now? Should they add a little bit more? What do people think? And we had a couple comments, and somebody came out and said, just trying to get to it here. A lot of people said a starter. They want to see the Brewers add another starter in this rotation, and I completely agree. Looking at this Brewers rotation right now, you have the Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta at the top of the rotation. You're bringing back Wade Miley. After that's question marks. You don't know what you have in the rest of this rotation. Is Wade Miley's getting a little bit older? Is Wade Miley going to get you a number 3 starter, or is he good? Is he going to be a number 4 or 5? Is he going to be a solid enough to be a 3? I really think the Brewers need to find a number 3 or a 4 starter for that rotation. I really do. I mean, looking at the way that's shaking out right now, you're going to be relying on rookies to come in there and kind of fill those voids. And they do have, we're going to talk about here in a second, some of the guys that got invited to spring training for the Brewers. There's some rookie pitchers that possibly could have an impact for the Brewers this next season, but I don't think you want to rely on that. I really don't, especially in the starting pitching role. You need a solid number 3 or 4. I don't think you want to rely on a rookie. Yeah, you might get a surprise. You might get a surprise there in the rookie role, but I really do think you need to find a number 3 or 4 starter. Rogan, I mean, looking at this Brewer team right now, would you be in the same boat there? The Brewers need to find another starter. I don't think you're going to find somebody Brandon Woodruff caliber because he was an ace in his own way, but I think you can find a number 3 or 4 starter and not have to spend a lot to get it.
Yeah, they definitely need to find, I think, a number 3 because you look at Burns and Peralta there, that's a great 1-2 punch, but let's be honest, when's the last time those two stayed healthy for an entire year? I mean, we haven't even been talking about that. This rotation is one injury away with those two guys from being in some serious trouble. You're gonna have a guy like Wade Miley. He's your number 2 now. Like, that could be a serious problem in its own right. And I think if they all stay healthy for the whole year, they could use definitely another pitcher in that 3 or 4 spot. But I won't even mind them going and getting a couple quality pitchers because one of these guys is bound to get hurt. Burns never makes it. I mean, that's just pitchers now in the MLB. They never make it to a full season. They're going to miss time, and it's usually extended time. So definitely not a bad idea there.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, quality guy. We're not looking for an ace. We're not looking for the Brewers to go out. I was looking at the free agent pool of guys left, and I mean, you have Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell, Mike Clevenger, you have Rui, and you have Lorenzen out there right now. We're not looking for you to go get Blake Snell. That's not what we're saying right now with this Brewers team. We're talking a guy like Michael Lorenzen, a back end of the rotation kind of guy. And even if you don't need him in the starting rotation at the time, bullpen. He can be a long reliever out there in the bullpen for you. And then when you need him to make a spot start, there he is. Craig Counsell made it famous. He was big for the 6-man rotation, having a 6-man rotation all the time. It saved his guys' arms, especially in long stretches. You're going to have stretches where you play night in, night out. You have a couple, even a week straight of all baseball. I mean, you're going to need that 6th starter in there at some point. It wouldn't be a bad idea, like you said, a couple quality starters. We're not expecting them to spend a boatload on these guys, but get something into this rotation to back up some of these guys. So I was, looking through the rest of these comments here. I mean, there's a boatload of them. One guy, this was the most interesting one of the day. So this guy comes out and he says, I'd like to see them take away a piece and add major league talent to the roster with the $82 million they threw away on a career minor league player. He's talking about Jackson Chourio. So he's basically saying we threw away money. So then I had a bunch of people commenting back on it then. I didn't even have to say a word because these guys took care of it for me. And he goes, get it together. Jackson Chourio has been in the minor leagues for 3 seasons and is still 19. You make it seem like he is 29 and been in the minors for 10 or more years. By the end of the contract, you'll be saying we got a steal just like fastball Freddie. And this guy comes back and he says, we have no idea how old he is. Maybe we shouldn't just take his word for it when this much money is involved. If he felt the Brewers were getting a steal, he wouldn't have signed the contract. What? I'm reading this guy's comments, and he's coming back, and he goes, this guy comes back at him then talking about Acuna and Albies, and then he says yes, because once a player hits 30, his career is definitely not going to go south in a hurry. The truth is, right now he's probably closer to 30 than he is to 20. So this guy's basically saying he's not 19, he's not even close to 20. He's basically this 30-year-old dude from, and he goes on to say, from a third world country that is basically stealing money from the Brewers because he lied about his age and
Trade.
I got lost.
Trade. You remember the movie? You remember the movie Benchwarmers? Remember that?
Well, that guy was playing Little League, and he looked like he was 50.
Oh, he's got documentation. Play ball.
I mean, I was looking at this guy's comments throughout here, and I mean, they were arguing throughout the day. My phone was blowing up, and it was just the same conversation between these couple guys talking about it. And I was just kind of baffled. I was really baffled by I get it. Yes, you could come from a foreign country and you could lie about your age. I get it. You could. When I look at Jackson Chourio, I got to be honest with you, that dude doesn't look like he's 30 years old. He looks like he's young. He really does.
Where's he
looks
from,
like
Trench?
He's a young guy. Like when I look at him, and sometimes appearance can, you're not exactly going to be right with appearance, but when I look at this guy, he doesn't look like a 30-year-old dude. He looks like a teenager yet. He looks like he's a young guy who just, is in the minor leagues right now. And he's been there for 3 years, and he's been lighting it up down there. So the heck, if he's 30 years old and the Brewers gave him 82, if you look at some of the other guys who just got big contracts, Aaron Judge is 30 years old. Shohei Ohtani will be 30 the season that he just got paid. Garrett Cole was 30. Xander Bogaerts is 31. And all them guys are making millions of dollars. So if Jackson Chourio comes up and rakes, I don't care if he's 30 or not. You guys, I want to jump to Austin. I jumped to Rogan first last time. Austin. Hearing what this guy's saying, are you like, what? Are you with this guy? Or are you like, what's going on?
Well, Tridge, like I said before, it's like this guy's thinking that this kid's off of Benchwarmers here, giving out fake birth certificates and all that stuff. Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure he has a certificate somewhere saying that he's 19 years old. I asked you where he's from, but I think you didn't hear me or something. So I looked it up. He's from Venezuela. I don't know if he came up. I don't know. Honestly, sometimes I don't know how the Brewers or MLB teams be finding these young talents in
they have
South America and all that stuff.
They have facilities. They actually have facilities in these foreign
countries. I know they got one in Dominican Republic. That's kind of the biggest one there. But Venezuela, they must have them all over the place now. And I feel like when you get into a business like the MLB, you can't lie about your age unless I feel like you've immigrated from somewhere. We've seen a lot of guys like from Cuba way back. They've immigrated kind of trying to cross the sea or cross the ocean there to get to Florida. And those guys are a little bit more like those. I understand. Maybe you can say, oh, maybe their birth certificate's a little bit off. But I feel like when you're with an organization with these facilities that they have all across South America and Latin America and all that stuff, I feel like you don't really lie about your age. This guy does not look 30 years old either. There's a picture of him out there on online, and he doesn't look 30. You could say I look like a 30-year-old, but I'm only 20 years old. And comes with the facial hair, obviously, and it takes time to groom this stuff and everything. But this kid looks 19 years old. I've seen some pretty old-looking young guys, so I don't know why this guy thinks that he doesn't have an age or he's lying about his age. But like you were saying, Drage, Jackson Chourio hits the crap out the ball. I don't care how old this man is because there's a good chance that he's making his debut this year. If not, he could be depending on how Christian Yelich plays out or anything. Like injuries always happen. We saw Garrett Mitchell get hurt, and that allowed Sam Frelick to get elevated there. Anything can always happen, especially with Joey Wiemer's bat kind of being on and off there. And if Jackson Chourio, we could see him making his major league debut very quickly. I don't know how well Perkins is going to be for the ball club this year. He was kind of a guy that came up. I I think it was middle of last year, and he actually played decent. But I think now with Jackson Chourio having this money, we might see him pretty early. And like I said, the thing I do go with this guy is what have we really seen from him? I've heard that AAA to major leagues is, I mean, it's pretty different. I mean, these guys are throwing probably a lot better, a lot harder, and we haven't seen that from him. So we are taking a gamble, but with what this guy was able to show in AAA, I think hopefully the Brewers made the right decision. But he could have just said the Brewers are taking a gamble on Jackson Chourio paying him 82. He didn't have to say he's lying about his age and all that stuff. I think he he made it a little bit more dramatic than it has to be.
Yeah, that comment was baffling to me. And if anybody doesn't know, you were talking about it there a little bit. It's an international signing pool is basically what it is. There's an international draft for the MLB. It's kind of like your MLB draft, kind of the same thing there, but teams get to pick guys internationally there, the top prospects, and they have that list out there. There's an actual top 50 list of prospects for 2024 there in the international pool. So it's really cool actually and they have, there's scouts. These MLB teams have scouts galore. They're looking at all these teams. An international player is eligible to sign with a major league team between January 15th and December 15th. He must turn 16 before he signs and be 17 before September 1st. So there's your rules basically for international player signing. So like we're seeing there, they sign really young. So you look at Jackson Chourio, he's been in the minors for 3 years now. He signed as a 16-year-old, turned 17 while he was with the Brewers organization. But that tells you how young these guys are when they're coming in. And you look at young Jackson Chourio coming in, he didn't look like he was mid-20s when the Brewers got him. Trust me, he was looked like he was in high school kind of guy. So definitely interesting there. Rogan, you've had a lot of, it looks like you've had a lot of thoughts over there on this guy's comments. So, just give me the skinny. Don't go as in depth as what you're trying to tell us here in the comments section on our page here, but go a little bit into what you're thinking about this comment we got.
Yeah, Trage. I don't know. This guy acts like we're the Dodgers and we just have a bazillion dollars to spend. For the Brewers, if this guy turns out to be as good of a player as they're predicting to be, this is exactly what the Brewers had to do. You have to lock him up now when he hasn't proven anything. This contract could turn out to be the worst contract the Brewers have ever given out or the best. Because if we get 8 years of the type of player that he's supposed to be, for $82 million, I think he can go up to 120, but even 8 years, $120 million, if he's the type of caliber, they're talking this guy MVP type player.
Yep.
One of the best players in baseball. And if he's that, there's no way the Brewers would have been able to afford him on the free agent market. So you take the chance now and you lock him up for 8 years. And then if he comes up and he doesn't do anything, well, that's how the Brewers have to go about these sorts of deals. They have to take chances when they're super young and not proven and kind of hope they turn into the elite player that hopefully he ends up being. And like Chourio, like you saying that if Chourio was more confident in himself, he wouldn't have taken this deal. This is the biggest contract ever given to a player that's never made their major league debut. And it kind of fits out perfectly timeline-wise because 8 years, he'll be 28, 27 years old when he finishes his contract with the Brewers. Prime of his career, he's going to be able to go sign wherever he wants. And if he has a good 8 years with the Brewers, he'll be able to pick the number he wants. And then if he doesn't have a good career and he kind of turns out to be a bust, he's got $82 million in the bank that no other minor league player has ever had the chance to get. So to say that he's not confident in himself, if he was confident he'd be a great player, he'd have turned this deal down. That also doesn't make sense because there's never been a deal like this. And it kind of timeline-wise works out perfect where he's able to finish off and get a super max deal. At the time, the Brewers won't be able to afford him then, but they at least have had him these 8 years because they took a chance on him for what, $10, $15 million a year. So this is a great deal by the Brewers, and I'm perfectly okay with them taking it. And like he was saying with the age thing, that was more of a 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s things. It's really hard to lie about your age nowadays. That used to be a problem in the MLB. Don't get me wrong. They used to say they were a lot younger than they were. I think there was one guy that actually was 25 and was telling people he was 21, and they found out like 3 years into his MLB career he was like 3 years older than he was. But that's kind of a thing of the past. You don't have guys getting away with that now much today. And even if this guy doesn't look old, even if he's 22 years old, he's going to be 30 when this contract ends. Like, who cares?
I'll get
if
over
he's
it.
A year or two older than he actually is. But I do believe he is 19 because he looks young. But yeah, I think this is a great deal by the Brewers, and I have no problem with it.
No problem at all. I mean, like you said, you're talking about a guy they're comparing to Ronald Acuna already. They're comparing this guy to some of the guys in the MLB who have won MVPs or are sitting right in the MVP race right now. I mean, that's how they're talking about him. You don't lock him up now. Like Austin was saying, I mean, we learned from Gary Varsho himself there, going from AAA to the major league level is tough. The difference that we don't see is breathtaking. I mean, you don't see guys at the AAA level pitching like they do at the big league level anymore. So you can have great stats down in the minor leagues, get up to the major leagues. Sometimes it doesn't always transfer over. So we got to wait and see. But he comes up to the majors and lights it up. You're going to lose him. He's not going to sign for some little contract if he's batting 300 his rookie season. He's going to say, I'm going to take the biggest deal that comes to me. That's how it's going to be. So, yeah, definitely a great signing by the Brewers. That comment just got me. I had to talk about it a little bit there. So, I mean, the rest of these just go through and they talk about the rookies, just hoping that these rookies play better this year. Some of them played great last year, had good spurts and moments. But, just hoping for consistency this next year. Looking at base like Bryce Terang, he went through some moments last year. He was hot, and then he'd go cold for a very long time. So hoping for some consistency there. Getting Garrett Mitchell back and consistent. Sal Frelick staying like he was. Maybe getting Joey Wiemer's bat straightened out. That would be a huge add for the Brewers there. Maybe Joey Wiemer's a guy you can move to first base or a potential DH kind of guy with some pop.
We got Rhys Hoskins trade, so
you got to have
Sorry,
off days
Joey.
for Rhys. Rhys is coming back from an ACL tear. You don't know. You don't know if he's going to be, right
True.
away he's going to be full go. So maybe you have a guy slide.
That would be the Brewers' luck. That would be the Brewers' luck.
That's the Brewers' luck. So, I mean, we're hoping for some solid play there at first base out of Rhys. But, I mean, just options. You have a lot of options at the end of the day with these guys, and especially with the loaded outfield. Also, I mean, trades. You got to look at trade packages. Some of these guys play well, these rookies. You have a lot of them. You have that ability to be able to expend a couple to maybe bolster that starting rotation or whatever you want to do here leading up in this upcoming season here. Just going through the rest, the one that stuck out to me, besides arms in the bullpen, I agree with arms in the bullpen. You always need bullpen arms. It doesn't hurt to add a couple here and there and maybe load it up. I mean, you can send them down to AAA if you have to. You always could use bullpen arms. But one guy came out and he said Pat Murphy at manager. I thought that was an interesting one, because I never thought about that one. He talked about, I just said, thoughts on the upcoming season. And he said, I'm not sure on this manager. He's not sold yet on him. And, I can agree with that. I can say for a simple fact of we haven't seen Pat Murphy manage at the big league level yet. We've seen him when Craig Counsell gets tossed out of games, get thrown into the manager role, but we haven't seen Pat Murphy in a full season as an MLB manager. And I think this is going to be it's going to be a trial and error run. I think it will be. I think it's going to help that they have a lot of, like Yelich is coming back. You're going to have Burns in the clubhouse. Burns is going to be hit or miss for me. I could see him being kind of a tormenting guy in the clubhouse just because it's his last year. And I don't know how much he really likes Milwaukee, just simply because of how they spited him there 2 years ago in his negotiations for his contract. But having Rhys Hoskins, getting some veterans in there, I think will help out Pat Murphy a lot. Having Ricky Weeks along with him there, a player who's been there, done that, can kind of help him out there. I think that's going to help a lot. But I'm definitely interested to see how Pat Murphy manages, because Pat Murphy is kind of an older guy. He's an older style baseball guy. So it makes you wonder, will the Brewers play more of an old school, we're going to get a guy on, we're going to bunt him over? The thing that we wanted to see out of Craig Counsell was bunting a few guys over in this last season. Are we going to see that out of Pat Murphy? I hope so. I hope we're going to see a little bit more out of it, because even with some of the guys in this Brewers lineup, the speed that they have, laying a bunt down isn't a bad idea in some situations here. So, jumping to Rogan here, Pat Murphy, first year as a manager, it's going to be, it's going to have its ups and downs. We all know that. But I mean, first impressions, Pat Murphy in there as the manager for the Brewers. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like he was saying, he doesn't have a lot of experience like being the top dog in the MLB so much. I think he finished off in 2015, he was the interim manager for the Padres there. Like 100 games, I think. They won 46-7, lost about 54-5, something like that. So, and they didn't bring him back as a manager, and that's kind of his only stint as a manager in the MLB, and it wasn't great. But then again, that wasn't a great Dodgers team, and that was a loaded AL West, not AL West, NL West conference at the time. You got the Dodgers at the time, the Giants, teams like that. I mean, that was a really good division there. But he does have a lot of experience as a college baseball coach where he was actually, I'm kind of looking back, I didn't even realize this, but he was a great college baseball coach.
Yep.
He was the Pac-12 Coach of the Year 4 different times and led his Arizona State and Notre Dame teams to the College World Series 6 times. So obviously not everything translates over there, but the one thing that does kind of translate a little bit, I mean, you can kind of see it in baseball because you still have to make the same decisions. It's not like the actual decisions you're making within the game are different between college and baseball. It's more of knowing your personnel, and your personnel is different. But if he can kind of bring some of that success he had in college, because he had a lot of it for a very long time, I think he could this should be a decent Brewers team, and it's not going to be a loaded division. So I think while he doesn't have a lot of experience in MLB, I definitely think that college background is going to show up this year. And I think he'll do an all right job. I don't think he's a Craig Counsell, but I think he's going to have this team competing for playoffs in the division when the end of the year comes around.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, he's been around. That's the thing. And keeping him in the clubhouse like the Brewers did, I think that's going to help. He was in there with Craig. It's going to add, I think they burned a bridge when when Craig Counsell left. There was this hole between the team and the organization, the front office and everything like that. And I think they kind of patched it by bringing in Pat Murphy. They didn't bring in a guy from the outside. They kept it on the inside. They kept it, internal, and they brought in Pat Murphy. I thought that was kind of the ploy there, was to try and keep the team relaxed, because when Craig Counsell left, they knew something was up. And especially when he left and he went to the Cubs, out of all teams, he had there's a lot of teams looking at him, and he went to the Cubs out of all teams. So the players knew something was going on. Fans knew something was going on. And he turned down a contract from the Brewers that would have made him the highest paid manager. So something was going on internally there in Milwaukee that a lot of people were like, what is going on right now? And I think bringing in Pat Murphy might try to rebuild that bridge between the front office and these players and fans. And hopefully, like you said, leading into this season, that it leads to success down the road there, hopefully to another postseason berth there in his first season. So definitely something to watch out for there. Just wanted to touch in a little bit here. We had our spring training invitees kind of thrown out there. We're going to get into these guys more tomorrow here, talking about them. But from what we've seen so far, Brock Wilken, Tyler Black, Jacob Mizorowski, Robert Gasser, Carlos Rodriguez. Don't get him mistaken with the other Carlos Rodriguez in the organization. This is the pitcher. He was also on the invitees that got added on there. So definitely some intrigue there with some prospects being sent down to spring training. We're going to get more into those guys tomorrow there as we talk through their stats a little bit and see who we like moving forward. But with that, I want to talk about your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty. Call Peggy, Sora, Anna to find your dream home, or if you're looking to sell, find them on Facebook at your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty, or stop in and see them at their location in Marshfield. And then also another one of our sponsors, Pittsville Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in and see the awesome crew at Pittsville Farm and Home Center in Pittsville. I wanted to get into our new segment, our Wisconsin sports question of the day. So we figured we're each going to come up with a question. We're going to ask it. We're going to discuss it amongst each other here. So I'm going to go to Austin first with this one. Austin, give me your sports question of the day.
Yeah, my sports question of the day is kind of sticking with baseball here, but not looking at Major League, looking at college. I was thinking this morning, I'm like, when is Wisconsin, Madison ever going to get a college baseball team? I know it might be a little difficult considering their football team and their basketball team is their main priority, and looking at how scholarships and Title IX all works, it'd probably be hard. But I knew they used to have a baseball team. I'm pretty sure back in the day, and I know they have a club baseball team. So it was just a thought, and man, I think I don't know how much draw a baseball team in Madison, Wisconsin would get, but I think it'd be interesting. I think any Wisconsin sports teams gets quite a bit of fan arousal there. So I was just thinking about that this morning.
I think a baseball team in Madison would get a crap ton of draw to it. I really do. Simply because, I've always wondered until, when I was little, I always wondered, well, why doesn't Madison have, a baseball team? Why isn't there a college baseball team in Madison? Trying to understand it there. And, then I understood Title IX and everything like that. And I always thought, why don't they get, take something out to get college baseball in Madison, not just club, but, anything involving baseball, because I think there's a draw. I think there's a draw to the city of Madison. I really do. And I think you could definitely benefit by having a baseball team there. Even if it's not affiliated with the university directly, I think you could get players into there. I really do. So, Rogan, any thoughts on that? You go to Madison. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, boys. I have heard some rumblings about a lot of people kind of wanting the baseball program back, but I've kind of looked into it in the past, and I don't see it happening just because it's a money thing. It's just a money. It comes down to the end of the day, it's a money thing. They've got baseball kind of classified down here at Madison, at least, as a non-profitable sport. So it wouldn't be making the university any money. They'd be losing money through it. And with obviously how stuff is getting in football and basketball and these other sports, I think the university would much rather be spending, like Austin was saying, kind of focusing on those sports and using that extra money that they'd have to spend on a baseball team to put into these programs. And then there's like if we bring the baseball team back, a thing that people forget too is because of like the Title IX, we'd also have to add a women's sport. So not only will you be bringing baseball back, you'll be bringing two sports back, which that just kind of goes back to what I was saying with money. Like the funds right now, I think whatever funds they have left from football and basketball right now, I think they're probably just content on putting back into those programs and the other, like we were going to talk later tonight, like no one really talks about them, but the hockey programs down here this year have been absolutely amazing, especially the women's program for the last decade has been the best in the country. So I just don't see it happening. It'd definitely be cool, and it does suck that we're the only Big Ten team without a baseball team, but I just don't see it happening funding wise.
Well, you watch in-state talent walk out too. That's the big thing. There's some good baseball players come from the state of Wisconsin. You look at even a guy like Gavin Lux came out of Kenosha area there. Some pretty good baseball players come out of the state of Wisconsin. You could draw players to Madison to play. I really do think you could. And you look at the softball team even. The softball team doesn't have the greatest of talent, still puts on some pretty good games there, plays okay in the Big Ten Conference. They're not overly over the top, but yeah, I agree. End of the day, it's going to be tough to compete with the other sports. And I think that's in all universities, to be honest. Unless if you get down south where like softball is a big thing at like, say, Alabama, or you get into some of these teams. Look up here, it's more football, and then it goes to basketball. Football is foremost. I remember talking to Stephen Buchanan even, and he mentioned about the NIL. I asked him the question. I said, is there NIL getting implemented into wrestling? And he said, no. He said there isn't NIL in wrestling yet. He said it's mainly focused on football. Then it goes to basketball, and after that, nothing. There really isn't anything else spread around right now because they're focused on those main two sports. And I think, at some point, these other, not organizations, but groups of sports are going to get kind of ticked off. They're like, well, why is there all this NIL money in football? I understand marketing and everything like that, but you got to see it from their perspective too, where they're like, hey, why can their quarterback get $10 million as a freshman, not even playing, but my starting pitcher down here can't even get $100 to cover his food for the week. That kind of thing I could see coming out there at some point. Austin, something to add?
I was just gonna say, I mean, Wisconsin has UW Milwaukee. That's D1 baseball. That some like Dalton Varsho went there, and there was a kid that Trage and I played against in high school. I think he went there. I don't know how he's panned out, but UW Milwaukee's not no Power 5 baseball program, and I think that shows a little bit. I don't think we've ever seen Milwaukee even in the national tournament for baseball. And if they have, it's probably been a long time. And so I think that draw to Wisconsin-Madison being a Power 5 school, being in the Big Ten would be huge. But like I said, and Rogan said, and what you were saying, it'd be hard with money and everything like that with Madison. With it, I mean, you look at baseball, if we got a baseball program, like you were saying, Trey, it'd definitely go, I mean, football, basketball, and then even our hockey teams would probably be above that, just with how good are both men's and women's, and our volleyball team too.
Volleyball,
and
volleyball would be above. Volleyball might be top right now, if I'm being honest.
Volleyball is probably at top.
They don't need baseball. They don't need baseball to make money. Like Rogan said, they'd probably be losing money, and so that's where it comes in. But as a fan of Wisconsin sports, I think it'd be cool. But this has been a conversation it's been a conversation for so long. It's never going to happen probably.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd love to see baseball in Madison. I really would. Just like you said, it just doesn't seem reasonable at this time to get it in there, unless if they had like underwater basket weaving for the women's, then they could bring in baseball for the men's. I mean, that could work. That could
Gymnastics,
work.
But
it's just really odd that there's softball but not baseball. Like that dynamic, that's the weird part about it. If there was
that's
no
what
softball,
I never understood.
I understand. It just doesn't make sense that you have one but you don't have the other.
Yep, that's what I never understood, was that softball was there but no baseball. That was definitely the interesting part for me. I mean, we got a golf team, don't they? I think Madison's got a golf team. Maybe we get rid of golf. Maybe we get rid of golf and we add baseball instead. Stop funding the golf team, fund the baseball team now. I think we'll be fine. So, Rogan, I got to get to you. Sports question of the day. What do you got for me?
All right, boys, you got to hear me out. This is going to sound a little crazy.
Here we go.
What, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances that the Packers cut Aaron Jones this offseason? Because before he had these last couple big weeks, that was like, if you looked up any reports, like there was a lot of reports going out there because of how they've pushed this money back in his deal to next year. He's going to be making $18 million, which is crazy for a running back in the NFL these days, that he was a top like cut candidate on the team, and that all signs were kind of pointing to the Packers moving on from Aaron Jones. Obviously, he has a big last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, so who knows what it is now, but he's definitely going to have to restructure that deal. You can't pay a running back $18 million in today's NFL, and he's already restructured it so many times. So when does he kind of get to the point where he's like, no, like this is the money I'm supposed to get, I'm not restructuring? And then how do the Packers deal with that is my question. I mean, I don't want him to go. I definitely think you bring him back, but I wouldn't be – were you guys expecting Devontae Adams to get traded?
No.
I think there's a way better chance that a guy like Jones would get cut than at the time when we were thinking Devontae Adams is going to get traded. So I don't think it's ruled out. I just want to hear your guys' opinion on that.
I'm going to give you a 2. 1 to 10, he gets cut. I'm going to give you a 2. I don't think he does. I think that he restructures this contract. I really do. I think he loves playing in Green Bay. I think he's going to do whatever he can to stay in Green Bay. And if Brian Gutekunst takes his age into the matter here, I think he's nuts. I really do. Because Aaron Jones he was injured for the first half of the season. I know, I get that. But when you watch him come back, you cannot say the Packers had that sole success on the back of Jordan Love. You can't say that they did it without Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was that workhorse guy. And you listen to Jaden Reed talk, and he was that glue guy. Aaron Jones was the guy that, everybody wanted to block for him. They just loved Aaron Jones. I think you gotta. If you are Brian Gutekunst, you have to find a way to bring Aaron Jones back, no matter what. No matter what happens, you have to find a way to bring Aaron Jones back. I think you I think you draft a second guy. Or find a second guy somewhere that comes in behind him, and you can get him groomed and ready to rock and roll. I don't know if Emmanuel Wilson's that guy. I know Patrick Taylor's not that guy. We saw A.J. Dillon as the main primary guy. He's definitely not that guy, but Aaron Jones can be that guy for you for at least another year. I think you got to bring him back. And, from what I've heard, my dad actually works with Aaron Jones a little bit. He works with his personal trainer, who is Joe Tofari, is his personal trainer, Aaron Jones' personal trainer. And from what I've heard from this guy, the most down-to-earth, humble guy. He seems like he's a little out there sometimes, but he's the most down-to-earth, level-headed guy who just wants to play the game of football in Green Bay. And I just don't, unless if the Packers do something stupid, I don't see Aaron Jones wanting to walk away.
Well, we've seen the Packers do some stupid stuff before.
Quick, sorry, Austin.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Austin. Sorry. Just real quick. I know what you're saying there, but if you look at the history of the last 20 years in the NFL, he is getting to that age where running backs, there is no gradual decline with running backs. It is a cliff. And you see it with Le'Veon Bell, great example, goes from an MVP candidate next year, he gets cut at the end of the season, and he hasn't been in the NFL since. You have to be really careful with running backs nowadays when you decide to move on from them, because while I think you could possibly trade him now, if he goes and has a bad season next year, no one's going to want him at all. Look at a guy like Dalvin Cook. He has a great season last year. Jets get him, hasn't played good, went to the Ravens, but it wasn't like they were just throwing money at him. You have to be super careful with how long you ride out with him. I love Jones, and I hope he stays a Packer, and I think he will, just because, like you were saying, they love him on that Packers team. And I think if Gutekunst were to get rid of him, that team would kind of take it to heart and probably be a little ticked off, because this is the vet on the team, and everybody loves this guy, and they'd kind of, I don't know, I think that'd create a bad dynamic with the front office and the players, but you have to be careful with running backs, especially the money he's about to get.
If you don't cut Bakhtiari and you cut Aaron Jones, you're going to have a lot of pissed off Packer fans too, trust me. You're going to start a whole new fight if you are Brian Gutekunst. He saved himself with these last couple draft classes where they've you look at this last one with the receivers and everything in between, they have been fantastic. But if you don't cut David Bakhtiari and you cut Aaron Jones, that's going to be baffling to me. So, Austin, anything to add there? What do you think? You got 1 to 10. What do you think with this Aaron Jones situation?
Yeah, I think you got to keep him just for the team morale. He's a vet.
That's not 1 to 10.
Like you were saying,
10.
Oh, 1 to 10, 2. I was thinking 2 before I was thinking 2 before you said 2, honestly. But like I was saying, he's a team morale guy, vet, but also when he's played bad, he was injured. And I don't think the Packers had their O-line really figured out at the beginning of the year for him to be successful. They were not playing nearly as well as they were at the back end of the season there. So you look at a lot of the O-lineman structure when it comes to how a running back plays there. Obviously, some running backs are talented enough, but a lot of it comes down to how well the O-line plays. And I think Aaron Jones just at the beginning of the season didn't have that. But we saw in the playoffs when we had a really good O-line, healthy O-line that were playing really, really good football, he was averaging 100 yards per carry, especially against the 49ers, who haven't given up 100 yards in how long. I think he's got at least one more year left in him, maybe a couple more, but definitely got to start looking at the NFL draft to pick up a running back probably in the earlier rounds. And like I've been saying, Braylon Allen, man, he's a Wisconsin man, and he's looking pretty impressive. And he's young also. And I think that's what right now GMs like to see in running backs is how young they are. And because running backs, like Rogan was kind of saying, only last a couple of years and then they kind of fall off. They probably have 3 or 4 good years, and the next thing you know, they're never to be seen again. And then you look at players like Adrian Peterson who just try to keep their career going in like Washington and Seattle, and it's just not the same football player as he was when he was playing for Minnesota there. So Aaron Jones, really good player. Like I said, I'd probably put it at a 2 right now, but if he gets injured one more time, his time in Green Bay might be over.
Yeah, I like the Braylon Allen, and you could go late rounds with Blake Corum too. I think I hate Michigan, but I think Blake Corum's going to drop pretty far into the draft. I don't think he's going to be high rounds, and I think you could get a guy like Blake Corum too, and I think he could turn out for you as a solid number 2 back in the NFL. So just looking at that, I mean, grand scheme of things, hoping to see Aaron Jones back there in a Packer uniform, it would definitely be a great sight for us in this upcoming season. My question of the day, sticking with the Packers, is next season, and I've been trying to get to this question for the last week, is next season Super Bowl or bust for the Green Bay Packers? Now, I know they're young yet, but now you've set this expectation. We've seen the Packers at their best. They were able to get into the playoffs. They were able to compete with the 49ers. They beat the Cowboys. Going into next year, it's not unrealistic to say that if the Packers don't finish maybe NFC North champs, maybe in a high seed there in the playoffs, it's a fail of a season, to be honest. I mean, you look at where this Packers team was at the end of this year. If you can't build off of that going into next year, you saw what they did this year. They should have, if should have, would have, could have, but they should have been in the NFC Championship game there against the Lions, all push and shove aside. I mean, that's just what we saw. So, good. Who wants to answer first? Whoever's got it. Is this next season for you, Austin? Austin's got it first. Is this next season for you a Super Bowl or bust year for the Green Bay Packers?
Man, Trade, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've won a Super Bowl championship. And hey, we can be fortunate enough to say that we've been alive since they've won one. You can look at the Lions and the Buffalo Bills, and especially the Bills, for how many chances that they've gotten to win a Super Bowl, and they haven't, especially that year they went like 3-4 years in a row and they didn't win a single one. But I don't know, Trage. It's been a while, and I feel like us Packer fans have been so loyal. It's so easy to be loyal to a team when they're winning, when they're number 1 in the NFC for how many years, like they were with Aaron Rodgers. It's just going to be interesting to see how these young players play next year, considering we saw how good they played this year. How are they going to be like next year? We saw Christian Watson. He was all right his rookie year. This year did probably nothing to help our team. But as of Matt LaFleur, what has he done for our Packer team except for get us to the NFC Championship 2 years? And then besides that, he hasn't got us to a Super Bowl yet. And he had one of the best teams that we've seen in a long time when they went, 14-3, and wasn't able to win. And we just can't get over that hump of the 49ers. I don't want to say it's a bust, but it's majorly disappointing. I'll tell you, it'd be majorly disappointing if we can't at least get to the Super Bowl. Win it would be great, but at least get to the Super Bowl. I thought after seeing what we did this year in the playoffs, we definitely had our shot. Next year comes a whole new team with a completely different schedule. Our schedule this year was one of the easiest schedules that out of almost the whole entire NFL, and we still went 8-8 or 9-8. So next year it's going to be a little bit harder, and each year is different. So I don't know if I'd say it would be a bust, but it'd be very disappointing as a Packer fan.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say it's a bust yet, just because Love had a great season this year, but it's one season. Like you got to – I like to look at it more like I think a more realistic look at this would be a championship within the next 3 years. I think that because I don't see it happening next year. Like I'd like to see them take a step. I think maybe NFC championship or bust.
Yeah.
Or like at least competing for the division or bust, something like that. Because to go from because you kind of look at the Lions last year and they finished 9-8, or I think it was 9-8, and 9-8, and they didn't make the playoffs. But even coming into this year for them wasn't a championship or bust year. This was make a deep run in the playoffs, and that's exactly what they did. Obviously, they didn't win the championship, but it was still a successful year. So I could kind of see that trajectory for the Packers. Like maybe next year we kind of become that line sort of team with that 12-5 record, something like that, compete for the division, NFC championship. And then maybe looking down the road, 2025, 2026, like I think within these next 3 years, you definitely have to get your window right now with this group of guys is 3 years, because within the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of these guys are going to have contracts coming up. Obviously, Love's going to get a lot of money this offseason. These wide receivers are going to have contracts coming up. Like, I think next year is a tall ask, but like I'm for sure saying the following season is Super Bowl or bust. I think 2 years from now is Super Bowl or bust, and I think next year is definitely like you need to be in the thick of it all year long, not this late run that we saw this year. I think.
Yeah, you're going to run out of luck eventually. The Packers last couple years have been bottom of the barrel, have to run the table, as Aaron Rodgers would say. And then if you have a chance to barely squeak in on the back end with a just by over 500 record, it isn't going to fly forever. They're going to have to put some wins on the board. I agree with what you guys are saying. Super Bowl or bust, kind of you're dramatic there, but you look at it, either you're in a rebuild or your goal's the Super Bowl. That's kind of, the two scenarios where you look at it there. I definitely agree, though. NFC Championship game, that'd be great seeing them go there. A deep playoff run is the more reasonable thing to look at with this Packers team. I want to see Jordan Love put together an entire season of good football, not a second half of the season. We got to see a full season out of Jordan Love here, where he puts together fantastic football the whole way. I think that's what is going to be a good look. I know Austin's getting upset with me, already dissing on his boy Jordan Love here in the offseason, but realistic look at it, he didn't put together a full season. It was a half a season. So definitely going to be interesting offseason here for the Packers there. So moving on here, I just want to talk about game day supply in Onalaska. Do you have a sports club or team? Are you looking for some sweet custom uniforms or apparel? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply to help your team get the sweetest gear. Find them on Facebook at Game Day Supply or online at GameDaySupply.net. But with that, I'm going to jump to Austin here. We got to get to our fact of the day.
Yeah, Trage, my fact of the day comes from the 1924 Olympics. It was the first Olympics ever held, and Great Britain clinched the inaugural Olympic curling gold medal with a 46-4 win over France. I say this because Great Britain now is not one of the greatest Olympic teams there. You look at teams like Canada and Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and even the United States won Olympic gold medal back in 2018 that had two Wisconsin guys on there. John Schuster from Superior, Wisconsin, and Matt Hamilton from McFarland, Wisconsin. And so I just thought it was pretty interesting. And then you look at the World Championships dominated by Canada and Sweden. Canada has 36 golds and 13 silvers, and then Sweden has 11 golds and 8 silvers in the World Championships for men. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that back in 1924, Great Britain won it. And there was a little bit of a skip there in time for the Olympics from 1928 to 1994, where the Olympics did not include curling. And I feel like curling is such a staple for the Winter Olympics. When you think of Winter Olympics, I think of curling, man, because that sport, low-key, does get pretty intense. And it's one of the sports I enjoy watching. So I just thought that was an interesting sports fact of the day.
You always give me a good one. You always do. Now we have the Olympics coming back. That was a good one. That was a solid one. We were talking about curling before we started. I mean, it was, yeah.
Good work,
yeah, we're getting
good
into
work.
it. Good job, buddy. We did good.
I was listening to the podcast.
We got to get going here into.
Trace, I was listening to the podcast before when Rogan was just you two, and Rogan was dissing me a little bit. You guys were both dissing me about my sports facts of the day. And I just want to say that as the owner of Sports Facts of the Day, I don't like the slander. I don't appreciate it, but I will move on and try better every day. That's just what I'm going to do. But Rogan, you're laughing right now. Don't appreciate it.
He is the master of the sports fact of the day. So get off his back. That's what he's trying to tell you right now. He's the best. He's the best. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're
Yes,
sorry.
Sensei.
In
Exactly.
our
Thank you.
defense,
That's all I just
your
want to hear.
sports fact of the day, your sports fact of the day before you did leave us that time was about archery. So I mean,
Archery goes hard. That's all I gotta say.
archery goes hard. So moving on here. Moving on, we got to get NCAA top 25 came out. We had some movement in there. The top 5 stayed the same: UConn, Purdue, North Carolina, Houston, Tennessee. Wisconsin jumped up 7 spots up to that number 6 spot in the rankings. Duke moved up 5 spots to number 7. Kansas dropped a spot down to number 8. Marquette moved back into the top 10. They moved up 5 spots. They're at number 9 now. Kentucky dropped 4 spots. They're at number 10. Arizona dropped 2 spots to 11. Iowa State took the biggest jump. They moved up 11 spots to number 12 in the rankings right now, followed by Creighton. Then we have Illinois coming in, dropping 4 spots there at the 14 spot. Texas Tech at 15. Auburn dropped 8 spots down to 16. Looking down the list here, Utah State at 17. Baylor at 18. New Mexico is at 19. Florida Atlantic. I watched them pull off a buzzer beater win again against, I can't even remember who it was. It was some crap mid
North Texas, I think, or
whatever.
North Dakota. One of those not so good teams.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic stays in. They're at 20, I guess. They're 17-4. They somehow keep winning. Dayton's at 21. BYU's 22, followed by Oklahoma at 23, Alabama at 24, and TCU coming in at 25. Just looking at some other notables that received votes. Gonzaga, only 4 votes to get back into the top 25. That's interesting. Haven't seen Gonzaga on the outside looking in a very long time. Other than that, I mean, Indiana State got more votes to get into the top 25 than Gonzaga did. That's interesting. Didn't think I'd see that day. Memphis dropped out. They're at 40. They had 48 votes. Northwestern's on the outside looking in. Texas also on the outside. Colorado State now on the outside looking in. They were at 24. They dropped out of the rankings. So definitely some interesting movement there. Badgers moving up to 6. That's what we like to see out of Wisconsin there. They're getting respect now, but with that respect, you got to keep playing like you are. And they have a big date with number 2 Purdue coming up this weekend. So that should be a good matchup. So looking at the top 25, Rogan, any of those teams, I mean, top 5 stayed the same, but any of the movement there that you saw kind of interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were kind of talking a lot of losses in the top 10 last week, so we kind of saw this big jump from the Badgers coming. And like you guys were saying, it's nice to see them finally get recognition, but like as a fellow Badger fan, I just kind of wish they would have stayed at about 12, 13. Because now that they're 6, it's like, okay, like now it's letdown season. That's kind of how I
Yep.
feel. Like from
They
now
always
on out,
get to this point. They
they
always
always
do.
get here and then they lose. Like it happens every year. The last time they did it was with like Frank the Tank and them guys, but every year they get here. And now it's like if you're sitting at like 18, 19, if you lose a game to like Northwestern or like Indiana, like okay, not the end of the world. Now you're like 6th. Like if you lose one of those games, like that's a big deal now. And like I just hate, I don't know, I hate the anxiety of having to watch these games now because they're this high, but it is awesome. Kind of looking at the rest of them, like you said, in Iowa State, huge jump. They jumped 11 spots, obviously coming off that huge win against Kansas there, and they're 16-4 in the season, so they're a pretty solid team. But kind of looking at the rest of these things, there's quite a few. There's not as many Big East teams as there have been the last couple years, especially last year. With you looked at the Big East last year, and it was probably the best conference in basketball. And this year, they've only got 3 guys in the top 25 there. But again, you looking at you, I've kind of been paying a little more attention to UConn lately now that they're back to 1. And I mean, it's the same thing as last year. They're just flying under the radar, and they're the number 1 ranked team in the country, and no one's paying attention to them. And like you look at these games, and this team is loaded. Like it is absolutely loaded. And I did see that Klingon, the big man's back. Like I would not be surprised if UConn goes back to back because the talent they have on this roster, they can shoot the 3 insane. They're a fast-paced team, and they play great defense, and they have two really skilled big guys down low that can play defense and score. Like, that's what you need in college basketball to win. So it's crazy to me that the number one team's kind of being overlooked, but all you hear about is Purdue and Houston and Duke and Kansas and teams like that, and Arizona, and nobody's talking about UConn. And just to kind of last thing here, I think this game Sunday for the Badgers is the biggest game of the season. You haven't seen them play a top-ranked team in a while now, and they've been getting hot here, so this is going to be a good measuring stick, especially coming off the last game there against Arizona where they blew that one.
Yeah, completely agree there. And, looking at the top 11 for me, I look at that top 11, Arizona, Kentucky, Marquette, Kansas, Duke, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Houston, North Carolina, Purdue, and UConn. Those are my realistic teams that have a shot for a national title. I'm putting Wisconsin in that list right now. The way that they're playing, skill-wise across the board, I'm putting Wisconsin in that shot there that they can make a deep run into the postseason here. And, UConn, like you said, it's so baffling to see the number one team in the country is not talked about a lot. You talk about Purdue, you talk about Zach Edey. Teams are talking about North Carolina, they're talking about Tennessee. Not really a lot about UConn, but yet they're still winning basketball games. And that's what at the end of the day, that's what matters. And at the end of the year here, nobody's going to talk about UConn, but like last year, they're going to roll through the NCAA tournament and nobody is going to be ready for it. So Austin, looking at a top 25, anything interesting in there that you saw, any teams jumping in or jumping out?
I think besides all the wins that the Badgers have gotten, that Northwestern win that they got is looking pretty impressive right now, considering the fact that the teams that Northwestern have they've beaten Purdue and Illinois, and that's the reason why Illinois dropped by 4. So with Wisconsin beating Northwestern, I think that was pretty huge there. But I'm not going to lie. When the rankings came out on my phone, and I saw Wisconsin number 6, I did not expect that big of a jump, because now we're above teams like Duke, who I can't remember the last time we've been above Duke in the rankings. We're above Kansas, who has been getting praised so much this year. We're above Kentucky and Arizona, who, if you guys remember, we lost by like 20 points. Granted, that was way at the beginning of the year. But still, that game right now, that game for Arizona looks like their only saving grace. And so, excuse me, I was surprised that we jumped by to 6. And if the 1 through 5 teams have not changed, I feel like, in forever. It seems like those are the only teams staying consistent. But once you get to that 6th spot, that's the teams that are kind of dropping. It just keeps filtering in and out. But like Rogan was saying, this game Sunday is going to be huge for Wisconsin to see if they can prove themselves. If they beat Purdue, you could see Wisconsin in the top 4, top 5 at least. And that'd be huge for Wisconsin. But besides that, all the other teams in the top 25, I feel like they're just kind of just filtering in and out. South Carolina is another team that is receiving votes, and they just recently beat Kentucky there. So you can see them probably getting in soon enough if TCU or Alabama drops a game here. And then there's another team that's in the top 25 for another week. That's kind of what it seems like for some of these teams. New Mexico, shout out New Mexico, still in there, trucking down in the Southwest there. But Florida Atlantic, we talked about them. I'm not impressed by Florida Atlantic except for their one Arizona win. And like we've said before, I think that's the only thing that's keeping them alive. But besides that, I'm surprised Marquette's number 9 too. Now I don't know if we'll get into this, but they're projected to lose to Villanova, so they could be out just as fast as they got back into the top 10. But I'm surprised that they jumped 5 spots, considering that there's some other teams that are also like 15-5 that I feel like have better wins than Marquette and better losses as well. So there's just a little bit of a shock there for Marquette. And Tyler Kolek still not playing very well. I'm pretty sure his last game he only dropped 4 points against I can't remember who they played last, but it wasn't impressive. They barely won. So I think it was Seton Hall. He only had 4 points, but they won this time. So like I said, anything can still happen early in the year. We're about midway I'd say, huh? We're close to midway into the year, and a lot of stuff
Yep.
can still happen. And for the Badgers, hopefully we just set ourselves up for a good seed in the not just the NCAA championship, but the Big Ten championship, and that'll set us up for the NCAA championship to get in the play or to get in the tournament again and restore greatness in Wisconsin.
Sometimes when you look at this rankings, it makes it, the votes, when they move teams up and down, it's kind of for matchups too. Purdue, Wisconsin facing off this weekend. Also looking at Duke, who made a big jump in the rankings. They're facing off against North Carolina this upcoming weekend. So you made two top 10 matchups this weekend out of the rankings there. So it kind of makes you wonder sometimes if they purposely are like, let's rank this team this week. We don't have to rank them too high, but let's rank them in there. Badgers definitely deserving, don't get me wrong. But, I've always had that in the back of my mind where sometimes I think the NCAA is just trying to make matchups. They're trying to make that storyline matchup for the weekend to get people to tune in. So with that, I just want to get into our sports stories of the day real quick. So Rogan, do you got your sports story of the day?
Yeah, boys, this one's kind of a different realm here, but I like to pride myself on kind of having like a little bit of everything. But my sports story is the Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva banned for 4 years because she was using performance enhancing drugs. Isn't that something we have heard with Russia a few times with PEDs there and the Olympics? And it's like every year they run into the same problem and they get banned from the Olympics, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. So that's my sports story of the day.
Now,
I don't think of the Olympics.
Is this the same
got
figure
it,
skater
Austin.
that was when she was 16 or something, and they accused her of taking something for like a heart medication or something, and then during COVID years, is this the same figure skater, or is this a different one? If you remember, Rogan.
I'm not sure. She's 19 years old right now, and it's a 4-year ban. So I don't think it is the same one.
Because there was a problem back then in that Olympics, so it's just a thing for Russia, I guess.
It's all of Russian athletes, man.
I don't even think of the Olympics. I think of Rocky. I think of Rocky when he's going to face Drago. You just knew that guy was juiced up. We just knew Rocky was going in against a juiced up Russian, and that's just how it was going to be. And he was going to have to beat. That's what he did. I mean, that's what happened. It's kind of like, no, I don't think anybody ever beat up Barry Bonds. So I can't say anybody ever beat up Barry Bonds. But at the same time, it always makes me think of Rocky. So, Austin, sports story of the day. What do you got for me?
Yeah, my sports story of the day comes out of the NBA. I can't remember if we were talking about this, or if it was me and my buddies, but we were talking about Joel Embiid, how he only has a few more games that he can sit out until he's ineligible for the MVP. Well, now Tyrese Halliburton, if he misses three more games, then he will not be eligible for all NBA teams. So they're even cracking down on that. Player must play 65 games to be eligible, and Halliburton has played 33 with only 35 games remaining there. So if he misses 3 games, then he can't even make an all NBA team, which I feel like Tyrese Halliburton is definitely deserving of that.
I agree he is deserving of that, but I like these new rules they implemented. I really do. Making guys play. I really do. Back in the day, guys played every game of the year. That's just how it was. They didn't sit out. Nowadays, guys sit out. It's load management. We got sick of it. I mean, I forgot Kawhi Leonard was an NBA basketball player at times. I really did. I would forget where Kawhi Leonard was in the world because all of a sudden he would just show up on the Clippers box score that he played, and then 5 nights in a row he's out again. I mean, it was just ridiculous. He was the guy that I really noticed, but guys have done it all over the place. And I mean, it's just ridiculous load management wise. They cracked down a lot this year, and I think it's good. I really do think it's good for the NBA. Yeah, is it going to suck when guys get injured? Yeah, it will. I mean, they should probably put in stipulations, and you have to put some kind of medical results in there or something that actually prove from a legit doctor, not this fake guy off the side of the road, but a legit doctor saying, hey, this guy actually has this going on. He's not faking it. But end of the day, I think it's a good rule.
I think it's a good rule. The only problem I could kind of see with this coming up is a lot of these guys with how like the Supermax deals and contracts work, your value of the contract you're eligible for upgrades based on if you get like all NBA or all star. So like if you have a guy like Halliburton, well, I don't know if he just signed a contract. Let's pretend he's not, but let's say he's eligible next year. Like right now, he's eligible for like a 4-year, $150 million deal. Again, those aren't the right numbers. I'm just making an example here. If he were to get all NBA this year, he would be eligible for like a 4-year, $210 million deal next year. And you can't tell me Halliburton is not an all NBA player this year. But with how these rules kind of work, and like you said, I like them. Everyone's playing, but I think they got to add some stipulations because this could really cost a guy like Halliburton like some serious, serious money if you weren't able to make an all-star or all-NBA team because of this.
Yeah, I agree. There's got to be stipulations for injuries or anything like that. But at the end of it, it's got to be legitimate. You know what I mean? It cannot be, oh, my head hurts today, so I have to sit out. You know, that kind of deal where it's like, oh, my pinky hurts. Nobody cares. Your pinky hurts. Get out there and play. We watched A.J. Dillon out there. He was going to try and play with a club on his hand. He was going to play the game of football with the club on his hand, playing running back. I mean, not a very easy position to play with a club on your hand, but he did it. And, that's the difference between some guys and other guys. And I think the NBA has gotten soft. I mean, this could be a conversation for another day, but I think the NBA has gotten soft. And a lot of these injuries are like, I mean, you look at last year, Anthony Davis had, I believe he got a concussion that game, and he got escorted out of the arena on a wheelchair. I mean, Charles Barkley and Shaq were dying laughing watching him leave the arena that night. I mean, just soft, really soft. And we can get into it another day, but definitely I agree with both of you there that there has to be some kind of stipulation put in here into the NBA that allows, like Halliburton, to still be able to get awards because he's had injury problems, and you're going to have injury problems. You got to still be eligible to get some kind of award out of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
And we've seen what Halliburton was able to do against the Bucks, so we know how good of a player he is when he's healthy.
Everybody does good against the Bucks. I don't know if we can count that. So anything else? I know we didn't get into Wisconsin hockey today. We're going to get into it tomorrow. We ran long on a lot of other things. We're going to get into it tomorrow. Rogan's upset, but we'll get into it tomorrow. I promise for you. So anything else we got to add before the show ends today?
Marquette's playing tonight against Villanova, and that's about it. So
that should be a good matchup for Marquette going up against Villanova. That should be a very good matchup there. Got to check it out there. A Big East battle between Marquette and Villanova. Anything else? Nothing else? Nothing else. So nothing else across the board. We talked about a lot today. We're going to be back tomorrow talking about the Brewers. Probably got to get into the Packers a little bit more. We're going to talk about everything there is Wisconsin. So this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. But until then, deuces.